Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince is the newest addition to the Dragon Quest Monsters franchise. However, although fans are generally split on how good it is, I personally enjoyed it enough that I feel like making a ranking video. Now, of course, I did a ranking video the other week, but it wasn't my best, so I feel like it's time to redeem myself. Now, ever since the Caravan Heart game on the Game Boy Advance, Dragon Quest Monsters has had a built-in ranking system for its own monsters. Now, as much as I hate to admit it, these are pretty accurate due to the strengths and stats of these monsters. So, in order to make this ranking unique, I had to choose a family that had very little diversity in its ranks. Enter the Mystery Family, a family that's dedicated to weird and iconic monsters and bosses from the original Dragon Quest series. So today, I'm going to be ranking all the mystery monsters in the Dark Prince game of Dragon Quest Monsters. Before we get started, my name is Defeater of Souls, and if you are interested in exclusively Dragon Quest Monsters content, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and all that other fun stuff that comes with supporting people on the internet. Also, one other caveat is to remember that this is only my opinion based off of inherent stats and traits. It is not a comprehensive list, as Dragon Quest Monsters is very customizable, and that's something I really enjoy about it. Although some of these monsters have better stats, they can still be beaten by lower ranked monsters by breeding cleverly. So it's important to note that monsters lower on this list are not necessarily worse, they just take a little more effort to make good. With that all out of the way, let's get started on ranking every single mystery monster in Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince. Of course, to every rule there's an exception, and unfortunately there is one monster that sticks out as being the worst of these 27 monsters on this list. That would be number 27, Robin Hood. This is the only rank C monster on the list, the rest of them are generally rank A or higher. As a result, it shouldn't be a surprise that he's the lowest on this list. That being said, he is not a bad monster. For a C rank, he's a pretty good physical attacker and has access to some pretty good physical skills. The main problem with him is he's generally only accessible through eggs. Of course, if you're lucky, you could probably find another way to get him, but you're probably not going to be seeing him anytime soon. Number 26, Crystalinda. Once again, another monster that you can obtain from eggs, and her and Robin Hood are the only two you can obtain from eggs. Although she's normally rank 8, she has some pretty good stats, and she normally uses ice and other status condition moves. Nothing too special here, but it's pretty much beaten by everything else. Number 25, Baramos. Now we're getting interesting. Baramos has unique skill sets, something that pretty much all of these monsters have from this point on. Now, of course, whether or not this works depends on the character. For Baramos, he's pretty much a glass cannon, as in he's supposed to cast some pretty powerful magic as fast as possible before he gets killed. Of course, he has some other minor status condition stuff that he can use as well. He also has a minor lightning weakness, which isn't that important, but I thought about bringing it up. Number 24, Hargan. Now, this is an even more fragile glass cannon, basically Baramos, but they dialed up the strength of his attacks and lowered down his defense. Of course, Hargan also has healing. The only reason why he's not higher is because he requires 4 monster synthesis in order to actually obtain. Number 23, Razorburn. Now this is where it starts becoming noticeable that I'm focusing on inherent traits. Razorburn is a physical attacker, as in his stats are all leaning toward physical attacking. However, all the traits and skills he learned are kind of oriented towards magic. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if you're using him for magic, or synthesizing him into something else that can have magic, it kind of works out. But if you're just trying to get a Razorburn by itself, it's not the best. Number 22 is Murdaugh. He's a kind of weak magic attacker, but he does have some powerful spells. You just have to make sure you use a lot of skill points, unlike some of the other monsters which have their more powerful skills lower down on their trait wheel, whatever. Now, of course, he also has a good combo between Sleepy Touch and Ultra Crafty Sleeper, but at the same time, Murdaugh's not supposed to be doing normal attacks because his attack stat kinda sucks. I mean, you can make it work once again, but at the same time, there's also better you can do. Number 21, Bishop Ladja. He's based around fire and paralysis attacks, but for some reason he also learns Hatchet Man, which is kind of funny. But the main reason why he's lower than the next monster is because he's used to create the next monster. Number 20, Dual Magus. This is just a powerful magic attacker. There's not really much to say about him, except, he also has multi-heal. So he's actually kind of good. Now, number 19, Fizzy. Now, Fizzy is kind of unique because in order to get him, you actually have to befriend 300 other monsters. And, yeah, they're not really that special. They mostly do buffs and status conditions, but they're not really, that good at specializing in one or the other. Number 18, Fluffy. Now we got someone who has some specialization. He has some really bad defense, however, he's designed around buffing and status traits and all that meant to support your characters. Now, of course, he has weaknesses, very minor stuff to darkness and explosions, but honestly, he's a pretty good way to buff your party. Number 17, Scruffy. He's the opposite of Fluffy, as in his defense is also bad, but he's meant to weaken your enemies instead of powering up your team. Now, of course, he also has this skill called Personal Grudge, which debuffs after death, and this actually works really well for Scruffy, because since he has lower defense, when he dies, he's still going to be debuffing the enemies, so it kind of works. Number 16, Jasper Unbound. He's a jack of all trades, as in he can attack both magically and physically. Of course, his lack of specialization kind of makes him wishy-washy, but at the same time, it can also be useful to have something that can go either direction. Either way, he's a pretty good monster. Number 15, Pizarro the Manslayer. It's funny how you can get Pizarro as a party member when you're playing as Pizarro in the game. Anyway, his stats lean towards being a good physical attacker, however, he kinda lacks inherent physical attacks. So when you use him for synthesis, it works out though, because he does learn some really good spells, but at the same time, he's just not that special. Number 14, Corvus. Corvus is awesome. He's a pretty slow attacker, but he has some really good skills and some very powerful traits that work well. Once again, this is another guy that's pretty good for synthesizing into something stronger, which is something you kind of have to do to get the higher guys on this list. Number 13, Nimzo. Now, this is a magic attacker who uses magic attacks. It's crazy, isn't it? He has some really good traits, such as Wizardly Waft, which helps restore magic points, MP, and Rando Disrupt, which just randomly gets rid of all the status buffs on the opponents. So, it's really good. Of course, number 12, Orgo Dimir, does everything Nimzo does, but he also does better. He also has some status moves to, help weaken the enemy even more to prepare him for the onslaught he's gonna unleash on them. But all in all, it works out pretty well. Number 11, Kelasmos. Now, this is kind of surprising considering some of the stuff needed to create Kelasmos is technically higher on this list, but honestly, I don't think he's that good. He's kind of slow and he's a physical attacker, however, his inherent stats, his traits, his moves, they don't really work too well together. Now, they're all powerful in isolation, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to use him by himself to create something really powerful, because no matter what you do, another part of him is not going to end up being put to good use. Number 10, Neljo. He's actually a well-rounded attacker, similar to Jasper Unbound, but a little bit more powerful. He has physical and magic attacks, and his traits are actually fairly generic, so they work well with him. All in all, it's just a working monster. Number 9, Mordegon, Lord of Shadows, is meant to just do normal attacks. Now, at the same time, he learns moves and skills that don't really do that, but if you just do normal attacks, things work out, because his attacks will score critical hits due to his traits, and his traits will actually make criticals raise his attack, so all he has to do is attack. It's a simple, powerful monster, and when you use him to synthesize stuff, that all goes away, but you get some really good spells to boot. Number 8, Malroth. Now, this is a fun final boss, because honestly, he is just a pain to fight, and as a result, he's really good on your side. He uses magic all the time. He'll use sleep as well to put your enemies to sleep, and then he can raise his defense, lower the enemy's defense, and then throw some fire magic around as well. He also has some healing, but that's not really what you're going to be using him for. Honestly, it's a good reference to his original fight in Dragon Quest II, because that was a pain. Number 7, Mortimer. Now, things here are basically everywhere. He buffs, he debuffs, he attacks, he casts spells. He does everything except inflict poison, which is kind of funny because one of his traits is based around inflicting poison. Number 6, Rapthorn. This is the last S-rank monster on this list, so basically I'm considering them to be the best S-rank monster on this list. They're actually an incredibly bulky spellcaster, and they have lots of powerful spells. Generally, his biggest weakness is the fact that his MP is kind of a little low, but this is generally alright because his magic attack and his spells are strong enough that you'll probably kill the enemy before you actually have to worry about that. He's also immune to Dark, which is just kind of a fun thing to add on there. But now that all those S ranks are done, now we can move on to the monsters that were designed to be the strongest, the X ranks. These monsters are all intentionally designed to be the top list of monsters, so obviously it makes sense for them to be this high. Number 5, Ramia. Now, this guy is kind of a bit all over the place. They do some healing, but they mostly do a bunch of light magic and physical attacks. Now, of course, it also has somewhat low defense and low MP, and it takes 4 monsters to get it, which is pretty much all X ranks in this case, but it's just not as good as the rest of these guys. Number 4, Zoma. It's kind of funny how he's the only final boss that got X-ray treatment. It makes you think that he's probably the best of the bunch. Now, he has some really powerful ice magic attacks. Like, that's it. You use him to get magic ice powerful. Like, that's very badly phrased, and it's just a fraction of his power. It's what he does. He casts powerful magic. Also, he can't be used to create anything else. Like, it's just magic. It's what he does. Number 3, the Almighty. This is probably one of the best healers in the game. Now, of course, he doesn't actually revive, which may or may not defeat that entire thing, but when it comes to healing and removing status conditions, he is going to be your best choice. Also, fun fact, out of all these X ranks up here, he's the only one that only requires 2 monsters rather than 4 monsters to synthesize him. That being Orgodamir, and one is an Emperor Slime. And Emperor Slime's a bit hard to get, but at the same time, we're talking X rank here. Now, of course, for these top 2 monsters, you could say it goes either way, but at the same time, you could say this list goes either way depending on how much you actually put into the game. So I think that it's perfectly fair for me to say that the number 2 monster on this list is Estark. Now, compared to the number 1 monster, Estark is very defensively built. He's supposed to be fighting in the long run, and which makes sense all things considered. He has plenty of auto skills, he has powerful physical attacks, and basically, yeah, he's meant to be there for a long run battle as a strong attacker. Of course, it's kind of the opposite for the number 1 monster on this list, Nocturnus. Now, this does not surprise me at all, which is part of the reason why I put him up here, but Nocturnus generally has a habit of being the strongest monster in every Dragon Quest Monsters game he appears in, probably because his relation to Terry, which is a bit confusing if you haven't played Dragon Quest VI, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter in this case. He's just designed to end battles as quickly as possible. His physical skills are all really powerful, some of them actually hit multiple foes. He also has oomph, just in case you weren't satisfied with his attack. Also, he's really hard to synthesize. He takes 3 other X-rank monsters, one being Ramia, the other being the Almighty, and one's the Lord of Dragovians, which is a dragon. Also, he takes Mortimer, which was, if you remember, the number 7 monster on this list. So he's really, really good, and honestly, considering all things, I think it makes complete sense for him to be the top of this list. And that's the end of this video. Were you surprised that Dragon Lord is actually considered a dragon and that's why he's not included on this list? Let me know down in the comments. Now, of course, this is my first time actually ranking stuff for Dragon Quest Monsters game that's not on the Game Boy, so I'm interested to see how well it works and whether or not I can find a way to work around the built-in ranking systems in the future. But that all being said, thank you for watching my video. Remember, if you're interested in any Dragon Quest Monsters content, to like this video and subscribe to the channel and all that other stuff that helps me out. Also, remember to leave a comment if you have any suggestions for future videos, or if you just want to say hi. I always like talking to random strangers on the internet. That all being said, this is the end, so I hope you have a good day, and this has been Defeater of Souls.